Counter-Narrative News brings you daily news today on Monday, the 17th of April 2023. Going to Sudan in East Africa, the supremacist militia of the Rapid Support Forces that were formalized into the previous Sudanese regime's armed forces have conducted their third day of provocation and bloody confrontation with the Sudanese army and its army chief, General al-Burhan, in the Sudanese capital and also in other provincial towns and cities as well. 150 people have so far been killed in the capital, and of course services and transport has ground to a halt. This is all to do with the post-Bashir regime seeing its former paramilitary armed forces squabbling with the new status quo as to trying to keep constant its power and influence in the Sudanese state. The Rapid Support Forces are also known to have allied with the racist death squad from Russia, which is known as Wagner. And this whole situation pertains to the Sudanese grassroots workers and peasants trying to strive for a chance to influence their life in an independent Sudan towards the people's rights and in a socialistic direction on the one hand, and then on the other hand, the forces of right-wing supremacism allied with global forces that will support them. In the grassroots movement for popular democracy in Sudan, of course Western liberal states are also going to see their opportunity to intervene, and that does remain a danger as well. It's a difficult situation for the Sudanese people as it relates to the difficult situation for people all around the world, having no state on the planet that supports their rights and having no real global leadership in that regards. Going over to the comments of President Lula, which one finds really difficult not to state are utterly embarrassing and totally off-the-mark comments on the Ukraine conflict. President Lula is arguing that everybody wants peace, apparently. And he argued that the Russian state wants peace, which is very strange. And then he argues the US has stopped throwing weapons at Kiev for war. It's just all really strange stuff if we remind ourselves that with all the military capacity that Kiev has from the Western imperialist states, of course, have their own agenda, which is against the interests of the global workers and peasants at large. But still, for all the support that Kiev is getting in defense of the Russian colonial invasion, occupation, and annexation of their country, the Ukrainian total armed forces aren't even an eighth of the Russian military capacity. That's the Russian military capacity is at least 8 times larger than that of the Ukraine armed forces. So if the West and the US really wanted to actually have a war in Ukraine, they would seek to match the military capacity, but they aren't because their agenda is something else. Going over to the United States, unfortunately a 16-year-old young black youth, Ralph Yarl, has been shot in the head for having mistakenly rung the bell of the wrong house for trying to get some people he knows. It's just another very sad incident of violent racism in the US, in this case in Kansas City, and our love and solidarity to particularly his family and friends, and may the Most High make it more comfortable for them. Going over to some historical news, on this day back in 1999, far-right supremacist activist David Copeland sets off a bomb right next to Brixton Market. Between the 17th and 30th of April in 1999, David Copeland sets off a bomb in Brixton, and then in Brick Lane, which is a big Bangladeshi black working class area, and also in Soho, an area that is frequented by the gay community. He wanted to set up a race war. Didn't quite achieve that, but also he was a former member of the British National Party, and he found that not violent enough, so he joined the National Socialist movement, of whose leader he met only a few weeks before letting off his violent provocations, which led to the injury of around 44 people in Brixton. And unfortunately in Soho, several people were killed. in his attack. But all of this relates to the fact that question remains: what do the British intelligence services know of his movements and his intent? Considering all other similar incidences and issues of collusion, they probably did know. And so why is this significant at this point of time in the history of communities in London? 1999, going into the new millennium, is really a time where the anti-racist movement starts to plummet. There's still a justice campaign for Stephen Lawrence that's coming towards its end of its kind of protest movement. There are still other protest movements, but just in general, the whole struggle just goes really low in its capacity to an arguable, negligible level, leaving the arena open, the landscape open, really, for the new wave of far-right provocation, which was the English Defence League and then Britain First in the late 2000s, which then becomes centre ground in British politics with Brexit and all of that far-right, much worse far-right politics actually becoming part of the far-right Tory regime here. And finally, yesterday, the very well-known and pioneering comedian and filmmaker Charlie Chaplin is born in London. He is born in 1889 on the 16th of April. He's from part Roma heritage, and he goes on to not only be a pioneer in developing film, silent film first, and then films with audio, but he also becomes basically a partisan of the radical socialist struggle and gets caught up in the McCarthyite witch hunts in the United States from where he's expelled actually back to Britain. And that really signals the end of his career, although he still makes a few films. All his films should be watched by everyone, including children. They're very, very engaging films, full of a lot of social and political empathy for the working classes. So it's well worth having a look there, especially getting children to enjoy his earlier silent films, which at the time and today children will love. If one's not mistaken, Vladimir Lenin himself considered Charlie Chaplin one of the most important radical political figures contemporary to him of his times. That's Counter Narrative News. Please continue to support us. Please do look at our other episodes, many which are uploaded every day. Continue to like, comment, critique and share, and encourage your friends and your networks to subscribe to Counter Narrative News on YouTube and our Twitter account, counter_CNN. Many thanks.